The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everybody, welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl, Hentz, and Dan Rylance here, and we're very happy to have Burk Tower here this evening, continuing with our interviews with the various candidates who are going to be in the upcoming spring election, which this is the primary race that we're interviewing candidates for right now. The primary will be held on Tuesday, February 16th, and so we're just about finished with all the candidates for this race. And so because of scheduling problems, however, I do have to say that, and Burk knows, and our next guest, John Hinz, knows also, that because there were some scheduling problems and so forth, and only a certain number of dates that we're able to tape shows, this show, unfortunately, will air only one time before the primary election day. So, but Burk was...
And the primary election day?
Again, it's Tuesday, February 16th.
Okay.
So, but Burk and John were both gracious enough to say, hey, that's okay, we understand, we'll come in anyway. So thanks.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
We appreciate your being here.
Glad to be here. Glad to share some thoughts with you.
Well, let's start out with the basics that we do with any candidate. Tell us about yourself and why you're seeking re-election.
Okay, just quickly. I was born and raised in Cincinnati, grew up there, went to undergraduate school there, then went to Indiana University, got my MBA and my doctorate in business economics, public policy there, taught at the University of Kentucky for a number of years, came up here 33 years ago as a faculty member and also a part-time administrator at that point. Been here for 33 years, always in the College of Business, served in about every role there can be in the College of Business. I'm currently serving as Dean of the College of Business, and we have close to 80 faculty and a budget of $6.5 million. Personally, I'm married. We have 4 children. We have 6 grandchildren. Why would I like to run again? That's a good question.
Especially with all that on your plate.
Well, yeah. Well, I think there are probably 3 reasons, as I indicated at the league meeting. One is I think we made a great decision in the hiring of Mark Roloff as a city manager. I'd like to support him. I'd like to get involved with him in trying to move the city forward. I feel a little obligation to try and do that after we selected him, and I think he needs some support from the council, and I think I could be supportive of many of the things he wants to do. Another is that I've always wanted to be involved in things. I don't like to watch. I like to be a piece of the action. It's a lot more fun that way. Life is. And
I don't know. It's pretty fun watching at home sometimes.
Well, no matter what it is. I always enjoyed playing sports more than watching, but I enjoy both. And the other is I've always been kind of fortunate. Some things have gone well, and when things go well, you have an obligation to give back. That's just kind of the way it is. I've always felt that. That's the way we've raised our kids.
Sure. Well, you've been on the council now. This is what term that you're seeking?
This will be the 4th term.
I've
been on 6.
Okay.
I've been elected 3 times.
Okay. So you've obviously seen a lot of changes in your time there. And some things have improved, some things have worsened. What do you see, Burk, as, other than budgetary issues, what do you see as some of the most pressing things facing the city right now?
I think there are a number of things. Number one, obviously, is water. Quantity and quality of water. I mentioned that as probably the most pressing thing for a number of reasons. One, there are so many dollars that are involved, and we spend dollars there, we can't spend them other places, but they have a high priority. That was particularly driven home in 2008, that particular
floods, yeah.
summer. The other thing is there are no easy solutions to this. It's not an easy thing to plan for. It's not an easy thing to follow through on the plans for. It's controversial because all of the solutions involve having some impact on some people and involve some change. And when change comes, people react. Some of their reaction is probably overreaction to change, because we've done a number of things in that area that have, I think, been very successful, and we can point to that. But it's expensive and it's controversial. It takes a lot of time. You see that every time a detention pond comes up. Another thing I think is always balancing interest. You mentioned budget. Budget's only going to get worse if you just watch what's happened in the economy today. It's going to filter its way to the state. The state will filter its way to us. And then we're going to have to take these limited dollars and try and balance them. Because over time, we can't spend it all on infrastructure. We can't spend it all on quality of life. We can't spend it all on police and fire protection. If we're going to have a great city, attract people to come here, we have to have a solid economic base. We have to have great services. And we have to have a great quality of life. I mean, people want to live where there are things to do.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit
Go ahead.
about, this is a little statement, but I'll get to my question. Since your years on the council, you have often been the most vocal about the need for civility on the council. And I have a couple of personal incidents that I remember, because one of them was there were 3 or 4 of us that protested about a closed meeting the council was going to have down in the city manager's office. I think about Four Rivers, or one of the ones on Marion Road. And you lectured us saying that we were disruptive. We weren't disruptive at all. We were like choir boys. We walked down to the city council, to the manager's office, and they said leave, and we left. There was no police called or anything. But you gave, you said you thought it was disruptive. I remember another incident when a man, he wasn't really hot under the collar, but a little upset. At the citizen comments, he turned to the mayor, Castle, and he said, "You ought to resign." And during your comments, you said a little lecture again that you thought that was not real civil for him to do that. Remember, I don't know whether anyway, yeah.
I'm sure I've done that
Okay.
at times, because I do have that as an ongoing concern at times.
The most uncivil council meeting I ever witnessed was the first Tuesday in February, and you said nothing.
January.
January, yeah. You did give a little homily 2 weeks later, but it was really just a little. So I'm curious about, why aren't you equally upset with the lack of civility by your colleagues on the council as you were in those other 2 incidents that I mentioned?
I think I am. First of all, that night I did talk a bit about the deer calling, and some of the
Said you
comments
supported
were made
it.
that.
Yeah.
I said I support
Yeah.
it, and I think that this is,
Yeah.
some of the things we have to do. And last time I gave I made some comments about civility. I didn't the first night for a number of reasons. One, Dennis McHugh came back pretty good and on talking about, in his own way, on the civility. And I thought that was enough.
Okay.
I think some folks on council, if you interact with them directly when they get fired up on things, will always want to have the last word. And it doesn't help oftentimes when things are hot to make them hotter.
Okay.
So I'll talk to people. I'll talk to people away from the council meeting and things like that. That's another thing I'll do that some others. Council meetings are meant to get some business done, to hear some things from citizens, to discuss some things. Some things I think you do away. The
That's a
same
good
things
answer.
with staff, I think.
The other trend or theme I've seen with you on the council is, if things come before the council that come as a surprise, you often say, we really haven't had a chance to read this. Let's lay this over. The mayor comes with his fire truck proposal. You don't make that motion. Instead, you ask a couple of almost apologetic questions about it, but it was really gentle, and no one had seen it before. So I'm thinking, why isn't Burk saying, let's send this, let's come back in 2 weeks?
That's a fair question. And some things I have to afterwards. I can tell you about my quick analysis, and up there when the TV's on and things are going hot. It was pretty obvious it was going to happen. The fire chief was there. I didn't think it was going to be of great consequence to the city in any way, shape, or form. It wasn't a big issue. It wasn't where I'd dig my heels in. In the end, if you'll recall, I'll say, there's not much consequence to sit here. Paul's the one that's at risk. I think it's going to be dangerous for him to do. And so, but as I thought about it afterward, you say, you could have gone a little stronger. There are things when you come back later that you wish you would.
So you're a gentle coach.
said
But on
something
both of
else.
those things, I guess my last question on this thing is, are you intimidated by TV Tony and the mayor in their
No.
control of the meetings?
No.
Okay.
But what I don't like to do is escalate things.
Okay.
And I think There are some on the council that if you challenge right then and there, when people begin to get hot and they begin to get emotional, sometimes it's time just to calm down. And
You're a gentle coach. There's also a philosophy is if you bully a bully, they shut up.
that's a different philosophy.
Okay.
There are different forms of leadership.
Okay.
There's
No, I hear
different
you.
forms
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the way you do
Yeah.
things.
Okay.
I do things differently.
Okay.
Probably some people that work for me would say the same thing at times.
Yeah.
I guess, during that meeting with the fire truck proposal, I guess, sitting back watching that, and I've looked at it a couple of times, even though I've heard what you've said, I think it would have been nicer to have our elected officials who had an issue with it perhaps, or maybe felt it should have been laid over, have the courage of their convictions and at least say that rather than just thinking, well, it's going to pass anyway, so, I'll just kind of go along with it.
In that particular instance, it probably would have been. Again, it wasn't a high-level issue in some ways. The consequence was relatively minor. If the fire chief had not been so involved, I suspect you would have seen something else. This community, this council, has tremendous respect for the fire chief, and he got up and was very supportive of it and very much a part of it and did the appropriate things, such as you had raised the question. He took his vacation day, he did it. There's an inclination to go along. I suspect if he had not been involved, I think you may have seen a little different reaction.
Yeah.
Chief Franz is very well respected by the
Yeah,
council.
he is, and we
he'll
like him
and he'll
too.
get some latitude on,
Yeah.
on things
And he
where
was
somebody else wasn't.
A strong person in that presentation. I mean, he talked
Yeah.
at length about it.
Oh, he talked at length, and
Yeah.
we asked him some questions,
Yes.
and he showed some forethought
Yeah.
that we didn't see. Without him, I think it would have been a different council meeting.
It's just unfortunate that once again the public didn't have a chance to really speak on it, because it was rushed through. I don't think
understand.
that waiting 2 weeks would have been a problem at all. As it turns out, the thing still doesn't run apparently.
Hindsight would seem to indicate
so-
you're correct. I can't disagree with you there. I told you what I did, why I did it.
Yeah,
So,
it just comes
for better
down,
or
I
for
think,
worse.
to the public not being able to speak on certain things. So let's talk about the TIF for Oshkosh Corp.
Sure.
This is, now as I understand it, you guys are going to vote on this after the federal government has made its determination on the bidding. Is that the way you're
I don't know
understanding
that that's
it?
going to, I think it's going to come to us whether or not they've made the final determination or not. It'll be conditional on the final determination.
Okay.
But this thing, if this thing gets delayed, I think they still may bring it forward earlier than that.
Okay.
Or if it happens at the first date. I understand, though, there could be further protest and that this thing could go on for a while.
Okay.
What will be brought forward, if it's brought forward to handle, will be something that says if they don't get this, then the TIF won't go through. There's more than the TIF here, by the way.
Yeah.
And in fact, we'll talk about that.
Why would the council even take a vote on it until that issue is settled? Because if it's conditional on that, isn't that kind of spending time on something that may or may not happen?
Depends on how you view the probability. If I thought the probability was it wasn't going to happen, we'll have some indication ahead of time whether or not it's going to happen. Be pretty sure whether it is or not, and to get the ducks in order for everybody to take action and to get the process moving. If we vote yes on that, to get the process moving, sooner is going to be better than later to make good on getting people hired,
Sure.
getting the facility built, and those kinds of things. So I think there's some concern about that.
Well, I know you should never, as a council person, make a decision before you walk into the council chambers. But do you have some sense of which way you're leaning right now?
Well, I think in the end, my guess is it will pass. I think the general consensus within the community is we have to be supportive of Oshkosh Truck. No matter where you read it, you see it. You've seen it in the newspaper. The editorials have been very much pro. You saw it in the Red Oak subdivision when people raised a very legitimate concern. Others came out and said, how could you even talk about being concerned? So I think there's an awful lot of positive sentiment towards doing it positively. I think anything that affects jobs, people are going to think about very seriously. The council is constantly criticized for not being business friendly and being concerned about jobs. So I think there are a lot of things that will go along with it. Clearly, to me, in many ways, it's a difficult decision. I've had a number of conversations with the city manager about that because there are aspects of it. To make this work, to make this work, and actually there's a pretty good explanation of some things behind the scenes that were in the newspaper yesterday, if you had a chance to read them. We're going to have to stretch many aspects of the TIF. TIF is not a simple concept to begin with. There are various kinds of TIFs, first of all. And there's more than the TIF here, because the TIF will only be for a piece of it. And there are various aspects of TIFs. Fundamentally, there are three kinds of TIFs. There's an industrial TIF, there's a redevelopment TIF out there, and there's kind of a mixed use. They all have different kinds of rules attached to them. And this will come through as a redevelopment TIF because there's, in order to accommodate what Oshkosh Truck says it needs, which is cash up front because of a problem on their balance sheet with debt, there will have to be some borrowing from the other TIFs. And you can only borrow under certain situations, and having it be a redevelopment TIF is one of those situations. And so calling it redevelopment, I think we can legally do that. Another piece of that in redevelopment is that you have to have the blight. But if you look at blight under TIFs, it's a very, very low standard. And who's ever applying that standard has a lot of latitude.
Like a vacant lot?
Well, like some aspects of an individual building that are in with, I mean, it's that bad. So you have this latitude. So what it says is that the organization making the decisions can look at this substantively, and they do have some room to roam, and at times we wouldn't roam. We're going to have to roam fairly far to make it happen. I think whatever we do will be legal and be consistent with the letter of the law. And so I think it'll be a decision to do we want to support this. You know, we would have, the city manager worked very hard to try and go in some other directions. We tried to go on the loans.
Other than a TIF, you mean?
Well, even other than a TIF, and also a TIF, you know, another aspect of it is with a TIF is that there are different kinds of TIFs. There's a pay-go TIF, and there's money up front, and there are development grants. They're asking for a development grant of really $5 million. A TIF by itself is only going to pay out a little less than $4 million. So we're going to have to get the money from somewhere else. So you say, how can you do it? There are only certain ways that you can do it.
Question on the
and we're going to stretch that.
Question on the facility. Will this facility have use after this contract is finished?
It should. I mean, it should provide them with a paint facility.
Okay.
I mean, exactly how much, I don't know. And some of the questions I think that we have to ask is, you know, what will be the accountability afterwards? But I think it's a pretty popular thing in the community. I mean, if you looked at the jobs data today that just came out, you saw what it did to the stock market today. It's been a horrible week.
I thought it was because of my Toyota.
Don't laugh. I have a Toyota also that's under recall. so anyway, so it's complex. My gut is that I will probably be supportive in the end. Has some questions to ask. I think the mood is to be supportive of it, to try and do it. They're a large employer. They're in some control here. But it's going to cause us to stretch, and it's going to put us in some difficult situations. But we think it's best for the city in terms of jobs, in terms of relationships.
So if you're opposed to it, you know, you're kind of saying in part that you could make some arguments that this might be too far of a stretch if you'd want to vote no.
If you'd want to vote no, you can call it too much a stretch. No. You very much could. And it's kind of interesting to watch the newspapers going both ways on this, quite frankly.
Well, and the thing is, too, going the other way, there's no guarantee that those jobs, that those people are going to live here. You know, whether they're already living somewhere else or whether they, you know, in the valley or they come into the area from some place further away than the valley, there's no guarantee they're going to be living here.
Well, you raise an interesting question, and actually it's one of the little side reasons why I like the TIF way of doing this. Talked about other governments participating, because even their employees come from the region, just not from the city of Oshkosh. One thing the TIF does is it does get all the people in the county to pay some of it, because in essence the money, particularly from the donor TIFs rather than going back, so all people in the county, all people in the school district, so a wider geographic area will end up paying for this, and they will argue that, well, we don't have it for schools. They're saying, hey, you're getting employment opportunities. So it's kind of a side thing. It does expand those people involved in supporting the TIF.
Question on eminent domain, just in, in a general. I mean, this is a real tension with where the city wants to go for a retention pond or something. So maybe just an overview of what you think of eminent domain, but more specifically, the neighborhood over in the Melvin Street area. They were going to put a retention pond in their neighborhood, and they came up with the idea, oh no, we want to put a pump station over in Menominee Park where the water would go into Miller's Bay. What do you think of that?
Well, no, originally they were looking at a pump station.
A smaller
also.
one, though.
But a smaller one.
Yeah.
The issue of pump, it was not a pump station or not. So
Okay.
there's going to be a pump station either way. So there are going
Okay.
to be some issues there.
But the water going into Miller's Bay?
The water's going to have to go somewhere, no matter where it goes.
Okay. It doesn't bother you?
Otherwise, well, it does. I'd prefer not to have it.
Yeah.
But it's going to go into the lake. It's going to go into Miller Bay in some way, shape, or form. A problem in that particular area is that when the city originally took that area and engineered it, that's the bottom of a bowl. They did something very crazy. Rather than things going down from Murdoch flowing all the way down towards the lake and towards the bay, it actually comes to a bowl. And so that was the reason a pump station was going to have to be there originally. It's always a difficult question when you're going to talk about taking people's property. I mean, you put yourself on the other side. Do you want your property taken? No.
Sure.
I would be upset. Then somehow or another, though, there's this other issue out there that we have in the city of having to deal with these issues, and that's a bad area right there. Because really, if you've been over there during, it doesn't take a flood like we had in 2008 to create an issue over there. In fact, none of the things we're going to do is going to totally save us from 2008 flooding.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that was a bad situation, no matter how you look at it.
Throughout the country. And I was in China at the time, and they were having the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things that you said at the candidates forum, Burk, was that you'd like to see the city improve upon some of its processes. What processes do you think need improving, and how would you go about improving them?
Well, I think some of it has to do with the council, because those are the things that we have the most control over. And I think one thing I'd like to see some improvement on the council is less micromanaging. I think micromanagement's not a good management tool. You don't get the optimum out of your employees. I mean, if we hire good people, we want them to come in, we want them to be creative, and the minute they think we're, looking at every move they make, they're going to be less creative. I think we had some issues with some of our private department heads last time where they stopped doing their jobs in some ways.
How do you prevent the
that's
council from micromanaging?
I think we just have to keep talking about it. I think we have to keep talking about it and saying, hey, this is the wrong thing to do. The second thing, I think the council, and when you micromanage, you don't have time to focus on the big things. And I think the council needs to focus more on planning. One thing I like about the city manager now, he brought in the idea of strategic planning. Quite frankly, it was not easy to get 3 of our council members to get involved in planning. And I think we have to be involved in planning. And we would have more time to plan if we didn't micromanage in one way. The other thing related to that is I wish, and I'll keep talking about, is let's not go back and relive past decisions. Think of the time that was spent on the pier that's out in Miller Bay, and now most people still wonder if they're ever going to put a pier in out there that's going to create the problem out there. Even the deer calling, I mean, in essence, that episode that you were talking about was kind of a reliving of the decision. Let's see if we can go back and reverse the decision in a different kind of way. And if a decision's made, we got to go forward. If we can improve on something, we'll improve on it later. So I think those are key kinds of things. I think, as I mentioned when we were here a couple of years ago, just the budgeting, we can get started earlier. I think the city manager has bought into that concept. We did it for a year, and then we ran into the transition, and it didn't work. So I think we'll have some different budgeting down there. So I think those are some of the areas that we have. The other thing is I think we have to figure out how to work better as a city with some of our partners. We have outsourced a good share of our economic development. It's not in-house. It's some cities have it in. In essence, we've taken it and given some responsibilities to others. That has some positives for the city, but we haven't coordinated very well with those agencies. And it's going to be interesting to see those organizations now are going through some transition. So.
Right. Well, speaking of that and working better with partners, I agree that maybe that should be done, but the taxpayers are partners too, and it just seems like of late we've seen a lot of things kind of falling through the cracks with respect to not notifying citizens when something affects them or their property. How can you as a council or we as a city better address that issue too?
I think, first of all, I think we're doing a much better job than we were 2 or 3 years ago in terms of doing that. The issue is once you start doing it, then everybody wants it for everything.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I actually think that we are doing, and again, the city manager has been very good about trying to get out ahead. We haven't gotten out ahead on every issue, and there's only so many hours in a day.
Yep.
And sometimes it's sort of like cars. At one time we had the old Fords that were black boxes, and then people decided for transportation, and people wanted a little extra and a little extra. And so I think it's the same way here. We just have to get a better job. What we have to do is figure out when it's absolutely critical, and when are some times when we may just not have time to do it. It takes a lot of time for people to go out, and I think we should, and I think the city manager's looking at that.
Okay.
And we just need to keep talking about it. And when we don't do it, people have to remind us.
Okay.
You give
try
high
to get better.
You give high grades that the city has made significant progress in improving management, communication, and customer service, and you put a lot of that credit to Mark Roloff. You probably, of all the candidates running, that's probably one of the strongest endorsements for the city. You really believe he's really done a change.
Well, I'm going to say, because we're going through some evaluation now.
Yeah.
I think he's been very positive in some areas that we wanted him to be positive.
Yeah.
He's been out in the community. He's brought some new ideas. I mean, there's some issues that we've had.
Of course.
I find him accessible. You can call him. You can have a conversation. You can have significant difference of opinion with him, and it's always an enlightening discussion to have a difference of opinion with him.
He's very steady, isn't he?
He's very bright. He brings things.
Yeah.
He's just been other places, and that's sometimes kind of nice. The other is that I like with him is I've seen 2 or 3 instances, and the Oshkosh truck is one of those. I'm sure he recognizes that we're stretching TIFs and all those, and he tried to go a lot of different ways before we got there. But it's all the mood of the city. Another one's been the convention center has been a bear, and to make some things work with the way that hotel was not working, it's incredible. And he's I call it the art of the possible. In fact, it was even quoted in the paper as saying that one time about the city manager. I believe in the art of the possible. Sometimes if you want to get things done, you got to figure out how to do them, respect things, but figure out how to do them. And sometimes it means stretching things, not going beyond the stretch, but it means stretch. I think one of the biggest things, again, you're going to see in the TIF is that we went for pay-goes, and our mayor has been totally opposed to pay-goes. But I think you're going to see him it's been 4 pay-goes and nothing else. And I think you're going to see a quick reversal on that one.
Okay. We're almost out of time here.
I'm
so
sorry.
No,
let's
that's all right.
ideas. You answered
No,
questions.
that's-
These are exciting
questions.
things. So
That's the
they're all
important
good
thing.
areas.
But why don't you take about 30 seconds, Burk, and look into that camera right ahead of you there and tell folks why they should vote for you on February 16th.
Sure. First of all, I'd just like to say to the citizens that I do appreciate you. You elected me the last 3 times. I've tried to work hard for you. I try to do my homework. I listen. I try to analyze things and make decisions that I think are in the best long-run interest of the city of Oshkosh. As you look at the other candidates, myself, I think the thing that I have a little bit better background for is experience in a variety of areas. I think I've been shown committed service to this community for 33 years, and I've demonstrated success in a variety of areas over time. So my hope is you'll vote for me. Main thing is go out and vote February 16th and April 6th.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Burk. Just sit tight. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, John Hinz will be here. We'll be right back.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, thanks.
Nice
I
to see
appreciate
you
it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I get
Yeah.
wrapped up in talking, so.
Dear Mom and Dad, well, I finally have some time off, so I'm writing to tell you that I'm doing well. We have good days and bad days over here. We try to remember the good ones and get through the bad ones. Mostly we have each other, and that's what keeps us going. And Mom, since you asked, if anyone wants to help, just tell them to contact the USO. You can't believe how much they do for us. With love, your son, Michael.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. The Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
We were in an emergency situation. We don't have extra. We have a little bit of water and a little bit of food. A meeting place, no.
No.
I don't think we have a first aid kit.
We have tuna fish, we have
Right.
beans, we have canned tomatoes,
True.
you know.
That's true, but that's really not survival food. Tomato paste.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. John Hinz, also a candidate in the upcoming spring election, the primary election, is joining us now. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
And, you know, we mentioned during the first half with Burk, and I'll say it again, thanks for being gracious enough to come on, even though this is only going to air one time before the primary. But, you know, I think you're probably going to make it through the primary, so we're going to get you on. You guys will be seeing him probably in just a few weeks again.
Well, I hope you're right about the primary. I
So-
don't want to take anything for granted. That you never know what's going to happen,
Well,
especially
that's
this
true.
year.
Yeah.
As we've seen in elections around the country, we
Yep.
don't know what's going to
Yep.
happen this year. So
It's a gut feeling I have. So
I hope yours is right.
And I trust my gut. So, all right. Well, you know, you've been here before, so you know the drill. We can always start out with candidates by saying, "Tell us a little about yourself and why you're running." So,
well, my name's John Hinz. I'm born and raised here in Oshkosh.
talk to us.
Okay, just talk to you. Okay.
Yeah,
Born and raised here in Oshkosh. Did spend some time in my 20s living in different parts of the country. When I worked with the airlines, I lived out in Las Vegas. Restaurant management took me down to Florida. When I was in the Navy, I lived out in Northern California. Actually got to experience the earthquake in 1989.
oh,
Yeah, that was where I decided helping people was a good thing, because I actually volunteered to help with the Red Cross, and our ship received, a bunch of people on our ship received humanitarian awards because we did so much for the Red Cross and helping with shuttling people around in the area during the earthquake and whatnot. But I've been in business management for most of my adult life. As a matter of fact, you and I met when I was at Jeffson Rugby. Wasn't quote management when I was there, but I was working as a bartender and a cook and had a pretty good pay when I was there and whatnot. So
Yeah.
it was, you know, it was a small business, so I was working within their budget also. So,
yeah.
but you know, I've dealt with people a lot of customer service along with the business management, and I believe that gives me a very good opportunity to be a representative of the people, because I'm used to listening to people. I'm used to taking concerns to heart. I'm used to listening to someone complain and understand that they're not attacking me, they're attacking what's going on, something that how they were wronged, or somehow they feel that they were wronged. And I think that we need a lot more of that on the council, as far as people who genuinely listen, genuinely care. It's not saying that we have a bunch of cold-hearted people on the council now. I just feel that a lot of people, you could go to the James Road thing recently, where people felt like, what happened? Why you know, what's going on here? And I know we're working towards that. I think Mr. Roloff actually learned a lot. We talked to him after the planning commission that night about it, and expressed our concerns, and he was, you know, you guys are right. So it's just the kind of person I want to be. I want to be open. I want to be accessible. Sorry I didn't get on sooner, but you know, that's like I said, I'm trying to start a new business up right now. I don't know if anybody watched the League of Women Voters Forum.
Well, tell us about that. What do you? Because I don't think any of us really understand exactly what you're doing. So
I have a friend who's been doing neon signs in like strip malls for small businesses, where you put up the channel letters in front of the business. Like when you pull into Walmart and you see the big white Walmart letters. that on a smaller scale.
Okay.
But he's been doing that for probably close to 2 decades now, and I've been helping him on my free time because it's his small business when I can. We've done work from Chicago to Madison, Milwaukee. If you've been down to Miller Park in the last 5 years, right down in left field where they have the Hot Corner Grill, that neon sign that's there, we installed that. So right there is big proof of something that we've done on, for the brewers that people see all the time. And I've been on him about this for years, and now the cost has finally come down where we can actually offer this to people, where we can do the same type of signs, but instead of putting neon in behind those canisters, we're putting LEDs in, which use 1/8 of the energy, 1/8 of the power. So the savings, we're actually helping keep costs down in stores because they're going to spend less on their electrical bill, and we're also trying to work in where we can retrofit. Where someone has neon in there, we can come in and say, hey, we can come in here. There's less of a fire hazard, uses less energy, burns brighter in the winter time.
Okay.
That type of deal. So it's a sign business and we're hoping that we're going to start doing some trade shows around the country and things like that for some of the smaller custom stuff. So.
Okay. Go ahead, Dan.
John, on your application for the Plan Commission, it's too bad you didn't put some of those occupations that you had, because on your application, the only employer occupation you put on there is umpire.
At the time, that was my only employer.
Oh, I thought you've been working with this guy for a couple of years.
As I explained, I've been working on and off with him, helping him out when he needs help for probably close to 15 years.
Okay, so then on the application on your more abilities, you also write on there that with upper level managerial experience I'm used to thinking outside of the box. So what is this upper level management experience? And two is, can you give us a couple examples of thinking out of the box that voters might see in you as a strong thing to be a candidate?
Upper level management would be general management in restaurants. With Wendy's, actually, here in the Fox Valley, I was the general manager of the Neenah Wendy's. I was general manager of the Fond du Lac Wendy's, and I was also general manager of the Oneida Street Wendy's up in Appleton.
Okay.
I worked my way up. With them, that was where I needed a job. Started out flipping burgers. Okay. And in 9 months, I was a general manager.
General manager of?
Of the restaurant.
The restaurant.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the only person there were 2 people above me. There was the area manager who oversaw all 6 of our restaurants. Okay. And the owner.
Okay.
And when I moved down to Florida, I was working with Bob Evans down there. I was a morning shift manager, which is basically the person who takes care of it. You had the general manager, the assistant general manager, and then myself. Okay. So as far as that chain of command goes, I was the third in line. Okay. Other restaurants that I've worked at, when I was with United Airlines out in Las Vegas, I was a team leader, which is the person who runs around with the little radio thing on their, making sure that all the bags get loaded on the planes in the proper spot, making sure all the people are on, making sure we have everything finished before we push the planes out. Okay. I did that.
Okay, how about some examples of thinking outside the box, which is the words you used on your application? How are you thinking out of the box as a candidate for Common Council?
Well, I mean, there are so many things as far as thinking outside the box that are very simple, cost-effective fixes. We have people complaining about snow in the wintertime, our streets. How about we tell our people who plow to plow the majority of the snow on east-west running streets to the north side of the street, because that gets direct sunlight all day, therefore that snowbank melts faster. And instead of plowing it to the south side of the street, it doesn't cost us anymore. Nobody's doing it. I know, I live on an east-west street and they don't do it. I don't see it on any streets. That's a simple one. Same thing with the snow thing, parking. If you're going to have no parking on one side of the street, have no parking on the side that's going to get, or the side that doesn't get any sunlight, which would be the south side. Because if a car's parked on the north side, plow goes around it, snow's laying in the street, it's going to get direct sunlight and melt. Whereas if you have a car parked on the south side, doesn't get direct sunlight, all that does is creep the snowbank out as the winter goes along. those are a couple of really simple ideas.
Well, they sound like common sense approaches, but isn't that going to be labor intensive, really, and costly to be changing out signs saying no parking on this side during winter hours during the day? Or,
I'm not saying to change. I'm not saying to put signs up on every street. What I'm saying is we do have some streets that have no parking during the winter on one side of the street.
Don't we have a 2 to 5 a.m. that you can't park on any streets?
Unless you call it in.
Yeah, but how many people call it in?
Or unless you have a permit.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think I can only go by on the street I live on, which has a person who makes sure that people call it in, or else they get ticketed.
Yeah, but most streets you can't park on the streets from 2 to 5. Is what I'm saying.
That's night to night.
So you'd have to change
but
the
you
ordinance.
but you can also get a permit.
Yeah.
But I wasn't saying taking away parking on streets that have parking on both sides. What I was saying is you have streets in the city that are narrow, like I live on Brockway, 21st, I believe it is. Just past Quick Trip there, where they're narrow streets with it. In the wintertime, they only have parking on one side because of the snow. Well, we should have the no parking on the correct side of the street to make sure that the streets are more accessible, make sure the snow melt is there. I'm not saying to go through and do this to every street in Oshkosh. Yeah, okay. I understand where you're coming from, where you would say that would be expensive to do, and I agree. Yeah. But if we're just taking the signs, moving them from one side of the street to the other, I don't think that's wasting a lot of money. And like I said, if they're plowing the streets differently, they can change the angle of the plow. So when they first swing down the street, well, let's swing it to this side instead. Okay. I think those are just very common sense things. And you do hear a lot of people complain about snow in the winters and snowbanks. I mean, before they came through, our snowbank was about this far out, and I actually take my snowblower out in the street, trying to keep the street wider.
Do you have any out-of-the-box ideas on how to just get rid of the snow in general so it doesn't snow here? I mean, that's what I think some of us would like.
Everybody could just leave their cars running all the time, pump those greenhouse gases.
Snowing, John.
Well, global warming.
Yeah, his neon lights will melt all the snow.
There you go.
The neon lights will, the LEDs won't, which we're finding out with our street lights here in town now.
Who do you, on the council, which council member or members do you most identify with on the council?
I thought that'd be an easy one for you to answer.
Actually, it's not, because I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the way voting goes with everyone all the time. I don't.
Sure. I don't either.
Before, this year, I think Mr. Buchholz has really impressed me. He comes in, he's prepared, he has his information, and he doesn't, I think I take the same approach as far as when you watch on the Planning Commission. I don't ask questions right away, I don't try to repeat questions other people ask, I'll let people ask their questions, and then at the end, if I don't get the information that I wanted, then I pop in, ask my questions, make my comments, and get out. And I think we've seen that from Mr. Buchholz. So, in a lot of ways, I would say that's how I.
You like his style?
I like his style, and that's how I plan to be. And it does appear that he genuinely listens to people. So, that's what I'd like to bring.
Okay, you're close with Paul Esslinger, and he tends to vote quite a bit the way Tony Palmieri does, not every time, and a lot the way Dennis McHugh votes, though not all the time. Do you have leanings more in that direction, or do you lean more toward Jessica King and a Burk Tower vote mentality?
Well, I don't know if we can. Again, I don't know if we can pigeonhole everybody, because everybody has this idea where you have certain people on the council who you would consider left, certain people you would consider right, but they don't always vote that way.
No, they don't. But a lot of times you know.
Yeah. We're not counting 0 versus 100%.
Right.
A lot of times you can just sit back and you just know before they even start talking to debate an issue. You just know which way they're going to go.
Don't you?
Or they can surprise you sometimes.
Sometimes, but a lot of the times they're they're pretty true to what we're thinking.
I can't say, because like I said, I don't agree with anybody 100%. Actually, when we first met each other, like I said, at Jeff's, was I believe at one of the election night things. I think that was the smoking ban that was going on. And just before that, I told you about our issue we had with Brockway. And when I first met Paul, I was enemies with him because he didn't support the sign that I brought up. And I've never seen 100% eye to eye with him. I mean, I've had situations where I've talked to him and he's like, well, how could you think that way? And I explain it to him and he understands. And I say to him, how can you think that way? He explains it to me. I understand. I might not agree, but I respect that he had a thought process that got to that point. Okay. Same thing when I've talked with Mr. Palmieri on issues. Same thing when I've talked with Mr. McHugh, which I get a chance probably to talk to more than anybody now because we're on the Planning Commission together.
Right.
I know Paul. I don't probably talk to him more than maybe 8-10 times in a year, so it's not like we're close friends or anything like that. And like I said, I probably talk to Mr. McHugh more now because I see him every 2 weeks.
You've mentioned the Plan Commission a couple times. You started out as an alternate. Are you still an alternate, or are you now a permanent?
Somewhere along the line, all of a sudden I got a letter in the mail that said you're now a full-fledged
Okay.
member.
Right.
I had no idea.
Okay.
I didn't know about it.
Okay. Well, but
maybe it was
kudos
because
to you for that.
I had 100% that I was showing up when a lot of people weren't showing
I
up.
don't think it goes by that.
I
I think it
when
goes
somebody
probably
had,
because
somebody
somebody
had got,
dropped off or
yeah,
something.
and I can't remember the name now. There was a gentleman who was only there once the whole time I was there. That's why I can't remember his name. But I think
He maybe quit.
But he stepped down.
Yeah.
And I think that was because
Okay.
I think the alternates were Bob and Feigert and myself.
Okay.
And I don't know if Bob wanted to be full time.
Okay.
I can't want to speak for him.
Well, I know Dan's just chomping at the bit here to ask something, but let me ask this because this has been voted on by the Plan Commission. The TIF money and TIF district for Oshkosh Corp. You're very supportive of that, and there's different takes on this. I tend to be on the opposite side of the fence than you do. But I thought your reason, at least one of them that you gave, was interesting, that they've never come to the city for money before. That's not a criteria that should be used to give someone money or not, John. I mean, why does that matter?
Well, the reason I put that out there was because there is a perception in Oshkosh that the city bends over backwards for Oshkosh Corp, Oshkosh, formerly Oshkosh Truck. And I was more saying that to drive home the point that this isn't something that they do. They don't come to the city looking for money. We're not doing this because we're trying to keep patting the back of Oshkosh Corp. And that was mostly the reason I put that out there. It wasn't because I was saying, well, the reason I'm supporting this is because they've never come to us before. I agree with you. That's a ridiculous reason.
Yeah. Why do you support it?
Why do I support it? They are successful right now in a very down economy. They're keeping a lot of people employed. I have a lot of people in my neighborhood who work for Oshkosh Corp. I don't want to see jobs disappear. It's very, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, it's a $52 million project, I believe it was, 51 point something. And it's only $5 million that the city of Oshkosh is directly kicking in. Now you can take or have a problem with the $35 million that the state's putting in, but I don't. This, as far as the city goes, we don't have anything to say about that. That's what they did in Madison. But I think as far as $5 million out of a $50 million project,
I thought it was $3.6 billion for the project that. Oh, you mean you're talking about the facility?
I'm talking about the E-Code facility.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
but their contract is $3.6 billion.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Can they borrow $5 million?
Well, right now the contract's up in the air. I don't know if you've done a lot of looking into the things that have been said about the awarding of the contract and everything like that. Yeah. There's a lot of venom.
Of course.
One of my good friends lives down in Houston, and trust me, I've even heard from him, what are you guys doing up there in Oshkosh trying to steal our business away? I'm like,
same thing with Mercury Marine and Fond du Lac. Remember the deal with the Oklahoma crowd?
Oh, yeah.
Now it's Texas versus Oshkosh on this contract.
And they, I don't know, I can't say it for sure with the numbers.
Right.
But from the information I've gotten, was BAE underbid by 20% from what their normal price was to try and secure their bid. And Oshkosh Corp came in 40% below that. So if that's the case, we're talking about 60% less. So I don't know if Oshkosh Corp is making money.
No one loses money in the Pentagon.
I'm just doing the math.
Yeah,
60% off of what the previous contract was is an awful lot, a big chunk.
If it's 300 over to begin with.
Well, if they didn't go that far below, then if they didn't come in with that low of a price, maybe they'd have more profit and they wouldn't need to borrow this. How do you get around the but-for argument, the but-for test that the state puts out for TIFs?
But for.
That the development would not happen but for this TIF. You actually think this wouldn't happen if the city didn't kick in $5 million? When they have the potential for a $3-something billion contract?
That's a good question. I don't know. The case that they made obviously was strong with the state, where and the state kicked in most of the money, which, like I said, I don't understand.
Right. Well,
John, you
who
have
does?
upper-level management skills. You should be able to handle that.
Not billion-dollar management skills. I'm
But
sorry.
This is only $5 million out of $3.6 billion, and you're not sure whether they can make it without it or not?
Well, I also know that like I said, I know, like I was running the numbers through my head. Taking 60% off the top of anything, I can't imagine there's much margin of error that's going on here. That's why I had asked what you checked on with the BAE or with arguments about this, because there were a lot of people saying that they were going to mark up all the maintenance by get the equipment out there cheaper. So I'm not trying to run around it.
No,
No, it's just it's that but-for test that just sticks with me.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That area out there has been undeveloped for an awfully long time too.
You know, John, the most interesting thing about you is not what you said on the chamber or the newspaper, it's your website. So I want to ask a couple of questions about your website. It's out
Absolutely.
there. Why did you name it what you did? And what is the name of the website?
Ringo's World.
Okay, who's Ringo?
I would be Johnny Ringo.
Okay, the cowboy rather than the cocaine guy.
Not either, actually.
Who is it then?
Johnny Ringo is the name that I've used when I've done throughout my life various internet radio, that type of deal, because I had a friend who had a libertarian talk show that was on the radio. I'd go on his show as Johnny Ringo. Okay. It just rolls off the tongue.
But it's not an original name.
No, but it rolls off the tongue, and how many original names do you hear on radio anyway?
Okay, so it's not Johnny Ringo, the Western Gunslinger.
No.
Okay.
That's the one everybody tends to think of because of the movie Tombstone.
Yeah.
And he was actually glorified as a much
Okay,
better
then the
person.
philosophy, which I'm just going to read. You probably know this by heart.
And we,
Huh?
you mentioned the website. We can put the website address up.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm more of a word slinger than a gun slinger, but I do own many guns, and I will defend the right to own them as long as I draw breath. Mm-hmm. That's kind of. Are you afraid that someone's going to take your guns?
That's going along with the old Greek phrase "molon labe," come and take them. It's just the rallying cry that gun owners have used for decades.
But are you as a gun owner concerned that there is a threat out there that someone's going to take your guns?
Right now,
yeah. No. Okay. Okay. Then you list your favorite movies and music, which I just think is fascinating.
Because it's very eclectic.
No, because it's all male. All of your music are male singers. Lawrence of Arabia, Cool Hand Luke. They're almost all, and I don't mean that derogatory. Braveheart, Animal House. They're all sort of like that with the guns. You sort of come across as sort of a macho guy. Is that an unfair reading of your website?
No, I don't know about macho guy. I would say I'm a guy.
Okay.
I'm not. I wouldn't. I guess a lot of people think of macho guys as guys that are chauvinistic, which I'm not.
Okay.
Guys that put women down, which I don't.
Okay.
I'm very much a gentleman. I have the utmost respect.
How about
for
a
women.
tough guy like Lawrence of Arabia or Cool Hand Luke? I mean, cool guys. So these are sort of all of these movies are. I love them. They're great movies, but they're all, I think, the dominant people in all of these movies are males.
No, not in The Fifth Element.
Okay, you have one. I'm just curious. Like I said,
it's
favorite books, far too many to list. Wow. But I find this far more interesting than your 5 answers to the questions that the Common Council, the Northwestern asked you. So what does BOHICA mean?
That would be, if you're in the military, you definitely know what it means, and it's bend over, here it comes again.
Okay. It's not this gun.
No.
Well, you do have Gunslinger, and then we have this ad for a MK11 at
no, bend over.
$1,300.
That's why it's in all capital letters, because
Okay.
it is an acronym. Bend
Okay.
over, here comes again is basically a rallying cry of most military people, and I think you can put 2 and 2 together as far as why you would be saying that when you're in the military.
Okay. Oh no, but I thought it was interesting. Far more interesting than the other things. So I'm done with the questions.
Okay. I'm going to switch to rain gardens.
Oh, that's a good transition.
So we're going to talk about Mr. Tome's favorite subject.
I'm switching to rain gardens.
Sorry.
That's right. You said during the candidates forum that while it's not required, that we as a city do ask a lot of places to put in rain gardens. And that kind of surprised me. Who have we asked to put in rain gardens? And can you, because a lot of people out there don't know what a rain garden is.
Okay.
What
I just wanted to specify was I said that on the Planning Commission we have stressed it, or we have asked of people, but we can't demand it because
Right.
it's not in our
Right,
ordinances.
that's why I said, you said it's not required, but you do
But we
ask
do
a lot of people to.
and we bring it, and if you've noticed, especially with Mr. Tomes, he tends to bring up the rain garden issue quite a bit because the rain gardens actually helps sift more. The way, and I'm not exactly sure on the design, I go on record for that. I know that it's an area that is made to help take away the particulates as the water goes through to help with our particulates in the groundwater system. They aren't something that we're actually going to get credit for, but they
Right.
do help if they come in and do measurements.
They do help with stormwater management because they're native plants. They're planted in such a way that they do absorb the runoff, if you will, and so it's not going to impervious surfaces as much.
Exactly. And it's just one of those things where, like I said, we can't demand it of people. We can't order them to do it. It comes up quite a bit, and actually after this last Planning Commission meeting, we just had a workshop, and Mr. Burk had talked to us about that, and he's like, he pretty much laid down the law. He said, guys, as much as I appreciate the fact that you want to do this, it's not our position to do. It's not in the ordinances. We can't do that. And he said, I'm just trying to help speed things along, make sure everything goes smoother, because he had said there are so many new people on the Planning Commission, he's trying to get everybody on the same page. And so we're going to have these little meetings afterwards to do that. But that, as far as that goes, things changed since the League of Women Voters Forum to now, because we had our Planning Commission meeting, and that's one of the things that we went over after the last one.
Do you know of anyone who maybe has put in a rain garden that if someone wanted to do that they could use such and such a place as an example?
Nothing that since I've been on the Planning Commission has gone in. Everything is still under construction and in the process, and I believe that they were going to do some rain gardens on the end of 20th. When they finish that up, I believe that they were going to put some in there because there was such a problem with water moving around. Not positive, but I believe that was one of the places that they were going to on their own.
We're running out of time, so do you have like a real short question?
Dogs in the park, yes or no?
There you go.
Absolutely.
All parts?
Absolutely.
Okay. Why?
And this is actually one of the questions that the Northwestern asked us. We currently have an ordinance in the city of Oshkosh, 6-foot leash, not enforced. I think we can all see people walking down the street with those. What we need is the enforcement of the 6-foot leash, and also people need to clean up the mess of their animal. If you have a 6-foot leash, you're about 8-9 foot area. I think that way people who have animals in parks, people who don't have animals in parks can be in the same park, and they're not interfering with each other because the animal's on that 6-foot leash. I think the 20-foot leash, that's where you run into problems, or the extendo leash or things like that.
Okay. Well, I'll go real quick then. In answer to the questions from the Northwestern, among your relevant experience listed, it's a lifelong member of the Otter Street Fishing Club, a veteran of the Navy, an umpire with the city's rec department. I don't know. Did you list those things as relevant experience, or did they?
When Mr. Ebert called me, Carl Ebert, by the way, I said, "Well, what's relevant experience?" I said, "Life is relevant experience."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, people have been putting down what their clubs they're a part of, what work they've done." So I just followed that.
Okay. All right. Geez. Well, just take like 15, 20 seconds. They're saying it's time's up. Just tell people why they should vote for you on February 16th, John.
John Hinz, and I hope that you vote for me on February 16th. I believe I'm a very open and honest person, a very approachable person. I take the time to think issues through. I take everybody's opinion seriously, and I hope that will get you to vote for me on the 16th. Thank you.
Okay,
Good
excellent.
job. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a bunch of other questions. I'm going to save them for next time, though.
Well, I knew when you got into my website, when I saw that you were going to talk about movies and film, I was like, oh boy, we're
all right, we're done. We're done. I got to get out of here, guys. I got to get out of here, guys. Let me finish. We'll see you next time. Take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh. Thank you very much.
I thought we were finished. Sorry about
Appreciate
that.
it.
Thank you.
We're not finished yet.
Cheryl.